It's hard to believe it's already been almost 6 months since the release of Final Fantasy XVI, and now people are wondering where the DLC for the game is. It looks like we may not have to wait much longer, and it looks like a brand new Final Fantasy VII Rebirth trailer perhaps could be on the horizon. So please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because today we got some incredible Final Fantasy news. So last night on Twitter, the official Final Fantasy XVI page posted this: Final Fantasy XVI update to the arcade mode leaderboard. At 2 p.m. JST, 6 a.m. CET, 12 a.m. Eastern on December 8th, 2023, subject to change, an update will be released which adjusts the method by which battle performance scores are calculated in the arcade mode. It will also include a new leaderboard to which all scores will be recorded. Please note that after installing the update, you will no longer be able to record scores to the old leaderboard. A further announcement will be made at the time of the update's release, detailing its content. I know what you're thinking. After seeing this, you're thinking, NSP, I really do not care about the arcade leaderboard. And indeed, I think it's a feature that not too many people even used or bothered with. If I'm being entirely honest, it's not even something I've sat down and fooled around with either. But there is a lot more to this update than meets the eye. I mean, first of all, it says right here, a further announcement will be made at the time of the update's release, detailing its content, which implies that there's actually a lot more content here than what's just being described about the leaderboard. This is just a heads up for anyone who loves the leaderboard. It implies that there is much more content coming. And in fact, this patch that's going to be dropping is more than likely going to sort of be the patch that actually makes it compatible with the future upcoming DLC. And if you notice this date, December 8th, 2023, it's happening right after the Game Awards at midnight. It seems to me that the DLC will either be announced or, dare I say, it will be fully available right after the Game Awards. It is entirely possible that we're looking at a shadow drop here, and it's not just the patch update that leads us to believe that the DLC is coming. Genki over on Twitter has translated a recent interview from the game's director Hiroshi Takai, and he's had some stuff to say about the DLC, which has sparked a little bit of discourse. But of course, this is the Final Fantasy community, baby. Everything sparks needless discourse. Here's what he had to say. FF16 director Hiroshi Takai said in the DLC, we'll be able to experience the darkness and mystery of Clive's story, with him saying, quote, "These 2 episodes will allow you to learn about the world of Final Fantasy XVI in more detail, and experience the darkness and mystery of Clive's story. We will also include new strong enemies and elements to make battles more enjoyable. Please look forward to it." Now, although I did joke about some of this being needless controversy, I do get why some people read this statement and react in the way that they do. The thing is that it's focusing on the darkness and mystery of Clive's story. It's easy to feel like we already got enough of Clive's story in Final Fantasy XVI's base game. There are plenty of other characters such as Jill or Benedicta or Cid people would have loved to have explorations of. Instead, they feel like we're going to be getting even more of Clive. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Personally, I love Clive. I don't think anyone really dislikes Clive as a character. However, it just really makes me wonder, what more of darkness and mystery can you explore about Clive? To me, that in itself is a really intriguing statement. So to be clear, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, and I'm really interested to see what exactly about Clive they're going to be expanding upon. When we talk about the mystery of Clive, there are 2 things that come to mind. The first is the 13-year gap in which he was a slave, something that went unexplored in the base game, and I'm profoundly interested in. I want to know about the times where he, quote, drank from a gutter. I want to see it. The other thing I can think of, though, is the ambiguity of the game's ending. Could they be willing to expand upon that in the DLC? It wouldn't be Final Fantasy's first time doing that, or its second time doing that, so it's entirely possible that that's also coming. In terms of other things I want to see from this DLC, if we can get playable Jill, if even for a split second, that would be awesome, or literally any other playable character would be really cool. Playable Joshua even. Playable Joshua again, I mean, adult playable Joshua. Because, you know, we played as him as a kid, and it always made me think, oh, we're going to come back to play as Joshua as an adult, and then he's going to be a lot stronger and more menacing, and we're going to feel the growth in Joshua. That never happened. Hopefully that happens with one of the DLCs. The And then of course there is the mystery of Leviathan. I hope that gets expanded upon. And of course, one thing I've talked about since they released this game is the difficulty. It's just far too easy. And I am no pro action game player, but I think that anyone who has any type of proficiency in action games, also too, in order to reach the Ultimaniac trials, you have to play through the game on normal mode, then you get to unlock Final Fantasy mode, and then you can unlock the Ultimaniac trials. So there kind of needs to be a heart mode, a mode that challenges the player from day one. And it can be something that they can play through the whole game through, and not just doing the different dungeons in a harder difficulty again. Another thing is the game's 60 frames per second performance mode, which doesn't actually hit 60 frames per second. This is something that people have wanted to see patched for a very long time since the game first released. For those who don't know, the 60 frames per second performance mode in the game almost never actually hits 60 frames per second except for when you're in battles. This, however, comes at the price of the resolution, dipping as low as 720p in order to keep that steady 60 frames per second. When you're outside of battle, exploring towns and etc., the frame rate can be as low as 40ish frames per second. This has led most people to just skip performance mode altogether and just play on quality mode where it is a stable 30 frames per second. But in a demanding action game like Final Fantasy 16, you want to be able to enjoy it in 60 frames per second. Having that fluidity and responsiveness, it's something that really matters. However, I do think a lot of people severely underestimate how hard it is to target 60 frames per second in a game like this, and how even harder than that it is to go back and patch it. After everything's already fixed and placed and optimized a certain way, you can be opening a whole can of worms and brand new bugs by going back and trying to make sure that the frame rate is higher. It requires a lot more work than people think on the surface. So this is on my wish list, but I know that there is a high chance that we're still probably not going to get it. But hey, the PC version of this game has been announced and is coming. Hopefully we hear about that too. Aside from that, I would love an option in New Game Plus to be able to turn off the purple sky. It really overstayed its welcome, especially if you were doing all of the quests. I get it, they wanted to emphasize that this is the world of Ruin, but at some points it kind of just ruins the beautiful aesthetics of Valisthea. So please let me turn that off in New Game Plus. That's all I asked for. And that's not all that's going to be happening at the Game Awards. Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis's Steam version is going to be launching. And wouldn't you know, it's going to be launching December 7th, on the same day as the Game Awards. This is an awfully convenient time to happen, and leads me to believe that a Final Fantasy VII Rebirth trailer could potentially be happening at the Game Awards. And I imagine that at the end of the trailer, they'll say, hey, go and check out Ever Crisis, which is available now. It's a really good way to get exposure for the game and lead to more downloads. So it seems like Square Enix is going to be going absolutely nuts at the Game Awards, potentially announcing Final Fantasy XVI's DLC, and maybe even a new Rebirth trailer. This is going to be one of the most exciting years for the Game Awards yet, and that's just the Final Fantasy stuff. We actually have a ton of other stuff happening in the industry and stuff just leading up to it. Grand Theft Auto 6's trailer is going to be dropping on the 5th, and there's a ton of other announcements that are going to be happening there. Like I think Elden Ring is supposed to be getting its DLC announcement. There's a ton of awesome stuff. This is going to be one of the best years for the Game Awards, I think, maybe ever. To cap off one of the best years that gaming's had maybe ever. And I am super excited to share it with you all. So smash that subscribe button and leave a comment letting me know what you want to see from Final Fantasy XVI's DLC. And I'll see you all in the next video.